Hi guys, Ronald here and welcome to the workshop. As you can probably guess from my little setup here, the topic of today's video will be chain waxing. And if you recall my earlier videos, and in fact some of my earliest videos, this has been a topic that has been recurring quite often in the past. And I dare to say I have been one of the early adopters of chain waxing. I started with it back in 2017 when I was really annoyed with oily chains and was just looking for a better solution. And back then, there really weren't that many. The OG product, Molten Speed Wax, of course, is still a very good option and a proven product that's been around for years. Also with their updated formula recently, the performance has improved. But what they really do is just basically the wax itself. Recently, in the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, chain waxing has really started to be pushed into the mainstream by brands promoting it and developing all kinds of new products. Silca, for example, from the USA is a notable mention. Really started kind of branching out into different niches within waxing, and they really worked on the benefits of it. And recently they've also started addressing the main drawback of chain waxing, and that is the initial setup and the questions around that. But according to my knowledge, at least, there hasn't really been a brand that would focus really on every single detail and provide a holistic range of products to cover everything you need, from really taking a brand new chain out of the box until putting it on your bike, and everything to be done in a professional way. You had to source these parts, most of them at least, yourself. Until now, that is. A few months ago, I have been contacted by the German company Optimize Bike, which really invested heavily into their range of products. And they sent me one of their kind of beginner waxing suits to test out and to gather my opinions. So this is the range of products that I got from them, and as you can see, some of it I've already put to use. So let me just tell you what it is about and what the steps are, and how these products, particularly the wax itself, is unique compared to other options. So let's start at the very beginning. Of course, the first thing that we need to do with a brand new chain is to strip it off the factory grease, which, to be honest, can be quite a daunting task in home conditions, because these greases are designed to be really protective against corrosion, so they're really quite stubborn when it comes to removal. To get kind of an optimized, well, pun intended, chain to have before the waxing, the step here is divided into basically 2 levels. The first thing that we do is to take their aerosol-based degreaser, which is a really strong kind of feels a bit like a brake cleaner, but it's stronger, a bit more violent to grease, I would say. And you can use, again, this little mason jar that they provide with it to remove the initial layer of gunk that you get on the chain. Now, generally, I recommend starting the brand new chain because, yes, you can use a chain that's previously been oiled and ridden, but the oil and the dirt tends to get trapped so deeply into the chain that it's extremely hard to properly clean. And really the time and effort and material you put into that is just really not worth it and can often cost as much as a new chain. And since the used chain already has some wear in it, maybe even quite a lot of wear in it given the conditions that are present when it's oiled, yeah, I just recommend starting with a brand new chain. Anyway, you can just put the chain into this mason jar as we have, apply the degreaser, and then give it a good shake. And this should take away the first kind of thick layer of grease. And as you can see here in this in this vial or this jar, that's not the only thing that comes off, and that's why you need to keep a good eye on this process. So the kind of, I've shaked it now, so it's not so visible, but when it settles, you get kind of a yellowish, greenish sediment, which is obviously the dissolved grease that's still in there. But you can also see a layer of blackness in there, and those are tiny metal particles that are a result of basically the manufacturing process of the chain. Now, these processes are quite violent and use a lot of stamping and heavy presses to transform basically a bare sheet of metal into the chain and the pins. So, as you imagine, this creates a lot of particles that are then trapped into the factory grease and still present on your chain, which acts as a grinding paste. So you definitely don't want that on there. To get rid of the finer elements of the chain, with the first step done and the majority of contamination removed, I repeat, this is from a brand new chain, so it's really important, we can now head on to the next step, the ultrasonic cleaning. And this ensures that the metal surface is completely bare and very clean, so that the wax can actually stick to it properly. Because if you don't do this, or you don't do this properly, this will affect your single application longevity, and this can plummet drastically when this step is not done correctly. So for that, Optimize provide an ultrasonic cleaner, which is labeled up so you don't really mess up the instructions. Everything is printed on there, so this really is a step above the usual generic things and really adds in some user friendliness to the process. You don't need to think about it, just adjust the dials to the predetermined locations, and that ensures that all the parameters are set correctly. Of course, this is an ultrasonic cleaner that does the ultrasonic thing, and it is also heated to bring up the cleaning solution to the proper temperature, again, just to speed up and the cleaning process and make it more effective. For specifically this purpose, Optimize has also developed their own ultrasonic cleaning solution, which is available from them. So again, that's another step, another tiny product to add into the holistic approach. After the ultrasonic cleaning is done, we are ready for the final step, and that is the waxing itself. Now, the special parts, and probably the most special product of all of these, is the wax itself. Definitely a highlight. And the place where it differs is mostly the addition of graphene into it. Graphene is, as you probably know already, a layer or a molecule of carbon that's just one atom thick. So it's extremely small, and this aids in the adhesion of the wax to the bare metal surface that we prepare with the ultrasonic cleaning. And according to Optimize, it ensures a single application longevity of 800 to even 1000 kilometers. And I've yet to test it, of course, but according to the many 5-star reviews on their site, I imagine that it will live up to that promise. And I also know that zero frequency cycling are also providing or running tests on this wax in terms of friction and durability. So soon we should also have some independent test data on it. But I suspect, based on the reviews, that it will be really good. So I'm really looking forward to putting this on my bike. 800 to 1000 kilometers is really quite a lot compared to 300 to 400, maybe 600 kilometers that previous types of waxes were capable of. Now, you probably also know that Optimize have really not been the first company to put graphene into their lubrication products. Absolute Black have done it earlier, and they had a really good kind of a wet lube that used graphene in it, and it was also extremely durable. But it was a wet lube, it wasn't that cleanly, and there it was more about the durability than the absolute lowest friction possible. Here, because it's a wax-based product, it should really combine both of them. Now, Absolute Black also have done this earlier, but that was pretty much a disaster in terms of performance, which looks like this will be able to improve a lot on. So yeah, really excited about this. Now, because of the graphene, Optimize also recommend a slightly different application technique than other manufacturers, and for this reason they also offer a separate ultrasonic cleaner, which is specifically designed and labeled to aid in the application process. Now, the idea is that if you take the wax and melt it ultrasonically and ultrasonic apply it to a chain, it is able to then push out the air molecules that can otherwise be trapped into the deep crevices of the chain inside the roller spins, etc., where it would otherwise not be able to properly stick if you were to just put it in a crock pot. So this way we kind of force the wax onto the chain and into every single component of it, and it also aids adhesion, again adding to that single application longevity that we're after with this product. So yeah, this is basically an ultrasonic cleaner, except it's labeled differently than the cleaning one, and it has all the instructions printed on it. The application itself will take slightly longer than your regular crock pot, and at a slightly higher temperature as well, which then needs to be reduced in the later process, but we're going to talk about this in more detail. I'm actually doing it. So when that is done, all that's left to do basically is to leave your chain hanging to dry and for the wax to solidify. And this can be done with this needle stand that they have also provided, and they also have some guide loops to thread the chain onto. So those will go right here. They recommend a drying time or a curing time of 2 hours at minimum, which again is a slight difference compared to other waxes. And then they also recommend a break-in, manual break-in before putting the chain on the bike. However, from my experience with different waxes, all brands basically suggest this, but I find that it's not really necessary because you can break up the chain as you are putting it on the bike. So I just don't find that absolutely crucial. Optimize also say that because of the nature of the wax, it also requires a slightly longer braking period, around 50 kilometers. So you can't just immediately turn up with this on a time trial, something to bear in mind. Again, this focus is of this product is this application longevity. So this needs to be done to achieve high performance first. Yeah, so these are basically all of the components that we're going to use. Now let's skip straight to the point and do a full chain preparation with this set. Okay, so let's start with the first one of our red E1 chains that we have here. This is a brand new chain, as I suggested earlier, and we definitely need to remove the factory grease from it. It's really sticky, and in fact SRAM chains generally do suffer from this, that the factory grease is really sticky and it's hard to remove otherwise. But as you will be able to see with this process, in these 2 steps, we can fully remove it. I've also cleaned up this little jar. So in goes our chain, and with the aerosol-based lube, or lube, it's not lube, it's the opposite. We're going to remove most of the contamination. That was not intended. I think we don't really need much more than that. You can already see the grease separating from the chain. I'll leave this sitting for a bit. And now let's turn on the ultrasonic cleaner first. So yeah, I've already turned up the heat to the degree setting. This is clearly marked. We also have a dewax setting in case you want to clean your existing chain. So that's one thing that we're going to do. And just to save a bit of time, I'm also going to start preparing the waxing part as well. So here we have the wax packaged in these cardboard containers. And as you can see, it's also molded into this hexagonal shape just to pay homage to the graphene in it. So I already went ahead and broke these off, so it's a bit easier to place because the full chunk will not be very convenient to put on there. So now we have this little graphene bit. Just place it right here, and yeah, this should have been this. So it's contacting the bottom. Yeah. Okay, so that's one unit of wax done, and now we need to turn the pot on. That is already done, and as you can see, the temperature we need for waxing is also present. So first we just melt the wax without the ultrasonic waves turned on. This should take a good couple of minutes because it's quite a lot of wax, and as with every other type of wax, you need to make sure that you melt it slowly because it's still paraffin based, so it can catch on fire if you're not careful. So let's just prevent that from happening. Yeah, you can see now at the bottom that it's really starting to collect the tiny metal particles in there. So let's just wait a few more minutes until this is ready. We also have a thermometer supplied by Optimize just to keep an eye on the condition of the wax. Actually, it appears that I've made a mistake because I left the basket in there with the wax, and that didn't enable it to contact the bottom of the pan in the cleaner to heat it, and it reached a temperature that's too high, so it shut off with the safety switch. So correction for you, you really need to have this floating in there. It's already starting to melt, so yeah, that's how it's supposed to look like. Have these little hexagons in there. Also, if you look at the place where I broke it, it really does look different than other waxes I've tried. So the wax part is really transparent, and then this darker part is probably where most of the wax got sedimented, basically, or the graphene got sedimented in it as part of the cool down process. So to prevent that, I think the ultrasonic waves definitely help, and we're going to need to shake it a little bit. And of course, we also have the thermometer to check if you've reached the correct temperature. Mainly after I put the cold chain from outside in it, we need to wait until the temperature equalizes to get proper adhesion. I'm going to cover this to trap more heat, and yeah, then this has been sitting a few more minutes and it's ready to go now into the ultrasonic bath. Okay, I'm quite happy with this part. Let's put the chain into the ultrasonic. This is just water with the optimized cleaning solution. And this is good enough for 1 or 2 more chains. So I'm going to keep that in here for later use. Now the heating has been set up already, as you can see. And let's just start the timer now. Let's give it a good 15 minutes at least. We'll cover that to prevent any accidents. The wax is melting nicely and also pretty quickly, so I'm happy with that. And yeah, now let's take the chain off my bike, so we wax that first. Now, while our new chain is being cleaned, this RAM one, let's rewax my existing Shimano chain that has already been waxed, so doesn't need to go through that process, just to see how the Optimize wax behaves. So, of course, I'm just going to remove this as usual. Quick link can stay here. We don't need that one. The tool also. And let's take this one. Take the chain and thread it onto the guide. To ease with the rewaxing. It's not particularly dirty because I've been only riding it in the dry, so I don't find that there's a need for extra cleaning steps. And let's just park this here until, yes, still needs a bit of time to melt. Okay, now all that's left to do is wait until this runs out and this is melted completely. The wax has been sitting for a while, so let's check the temperature. Yep, it should be good to go, even a bit too hot, to be honest. So just put it down a bit. It looks like there aren't any unmelted pieces either, so let's put the chain in. Okay, there we go. Now, of course, the temperature will drop due to the cold chain, so I'm just checking the instructions now. Oh yeah, actually the basket again, so it should have been in the basket, of course. Now, if I were just using it as a regular crockpot, this would have been fine, so I guess it's the strength of the habit. Yeah, the thing is now you don't have enough wax, so you need to add a bit more if you want to do it this way. So let's add some more. Hogy így bénázunk?
Szerintem ez így rég. Életedben először találkozottál vele.
I'm just going to break it up to smaller pieces so it melts quicker, hopefully. In the meantime, let's check this new chain that we've started preparing. It's quite hot. It should be clean already. Okay, I'll just take this and wash it off with some clean water, and then we can basically put another chain in this jar and then transfer it straight to here, so you have a continuous process. Okay, so while the additional wax is melting, as we've just applied, I've also realized that we got these guides from Optimize for our chains. These are really quite handy and probably much better suited than bent spokes because they have this little threaded nut which you can use to connect and disconnect it. So since this chain is ready for waxing, I'm going to thread it on like so. It's a bit of a mess. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so that one is ready and waiting as well. So a bit of time until this is melted. So let's just wait. With the rest of the wax melted, I've already started the ultrasonic process for the chain. And what we see now are the air bubbles which the ultrasonic waves force out of the chain to be replaced with wax inside the rollers and between the plates. So this should run for a few minutes. Then we take the heating off, let it cool down a bit, and the chain will be ready to go. The 10-minute timer has run out on the waxing process, so now let's check the temperature. As you can see, it's not as hot as it was before, 90 something degrees, and it's starting to cool down. It should, at least, because everything is turned off. And another key difference here between regular wax and this one is that we need to have it drop to around 60 degrees, and only then should we take the chain out, which at this rate it's still going up. Will take a while, so I will not bore you with that. In the next video I will report on how this performs on the bike, how it is like to live with generally. As you can see, the process is a bit more laborious than with regular wax, but it should be compensated by the fact that you don't need to do it very often. And even if you go through the 1,000 kilometers, Optimize also offer a drip loop to top it off, which should last another 300. So potentially this could be a very long-lasting solution, and you don't need to even do this process maybe until you experience a wet ride or a wet race or something like that. So yeah, that's all for today. Thanks for watching this wax preparation video, and we'll see each other in the next one when I will talk you through about my experiences. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Okay guys, so as promised, now we'll talk about my ride experiences with the Optimize Graphene Chain Wax that I've gathered over the past almost 5 months of using it. And the first note I would like to address is, well, what we've been focusing on at the beginning is the alleged durability of the wax. So this is basically what I can test in the best way or the most accurate way in regular riding and use without specialized equipment, apart from, absolute efficiency. And this is what I was focusing on mainly, because yeah, that's kind of an Achilles heel of some of the chain waxes that we use. The single application longevity usually isn't huge, so it's from 300 to 600 kilometers, but the chain starts to get really fairly noisy around 300 to 400, so that's when people usually reapply. And this is our main point to test. So my experiences here are twofold. So if you scroll back to the beginning, you see that the application process that Optimize describe and prescribe for their wax is quite laborious. But if you really take care and go through all of these steps as you should, which I've been doing in the beginning, you really do get extraordinary results in terms of a single application longevity. And in my experience, that equates to around the first 600 kilometers having basically no chain noise whatsoever. So that's roughly double of what I usually see with Molten, for example, and Silca for that matter, without any additives, keep in mind. So that's pretty damn impressive. But my issue here is that, again, the process is quite laborious and there are a lot of steps and you really need to be careful. So then I was curious if the performance stays even if you just do like a regular wax application, just melt it, dip the chain, take it out, and off you go. And surprisingly, it works really well even in this scenario. And honestly, I haven't seen a terrible amount of degradation. Admittedly, there were some, but still, at least 400 kilometers either way, I was getting noise-free. And then I just started reapplying Silca liquid wax on it, and then it was perfectly fine for another few hundred kilometers. So I have to say that part of the claims and benefits is really rooted in reality. I'm just really happy with how that performed, and I've been using it mostly on the road bike in my regular training conditions. Although one thing I was really curious about was the wet weather performance, but this year has been really dry, so I haven't really had the chance to test it properly. We did get a few showers, but it was just a few kilometer stretches of wet road, not even fully, like full on rain conditions. So that is an unknown for me. But based on the dry weather performance, this should be also improved compared to regular waxing. So this probably is the ideal product for you if you're racing some long gravel, mountain bike, off-road events, or even road events, and you don't really want to reapply very often. Even in regular training, this can come in handy if you're busy. So that that aspect of its performance definitely can offset the price premium for some people. And there are the regular non-graphene version of this wax as well. So those are at a lower price point, presumably with a lower longevity. So yeah, this part of the product I'm really happy with. As I said, the application process is quite complicated and not really necessary. Then if you talk about the absolute efficiency of the lubricant, this is not something I can test. I don't have the equipment for that. But there is now data on this from Zero Friction Cycling. They also don't test absolute efficiency, just proxies. And in terms of wear life and chain degradation, drivetrain degradation, the performance and the wear rates are up there with the best loops or very close. So that is really okay from my point of view. Another thing that kind of differentiates different chain waxes is the cleanliness overall and the wax buildup, etc. Here again, I have to say this is one of the good ones. Obviously, because of the graphene content, the wax itself is a bit darker. So that's visible on the chain. If you compare it side to side with, for example, a Silca wax chain or a Molten wax chain, then this is the darkest of them. So the residue is also a bit darker, but it really is quite dry, flakes off. So all the usual benefits you get from wax. And as tested also, I've mentioned this earlier, it also is compatible with the liquid versions of various manufacturers. So you can just top it up if you don't want to go through the whole process again. Of course, this means that now the application longevity won't be as long. But actually just today, I got a few samples of their own liquid wax versions, which weren't available at the time when I was starting the test. So the next step for me is to have a go at these as well. And again, these come in different price points. So I have the regular wax, which is just a wax, as most lubes are. Then I have the mid-range graphite version and the top-end graphene version. The difference here being the carbon molecules arranged in a different way and inserted in a different form into the lubricant. So these also impact performance. I imagine that the graphene wax that I have on there now, paired with the graphene drip lube, gets you a really long overall life of the product. So I'm definitely looking forward to test this out in the next few months. But yeah, that will be something for the future. Overall, I have to say I'm really happy with how the wax performed, and it did deliver on the promise of longevity. Downsides, I've already mentioned this a few times, so the application, not needed. But then the other thing that I think is coming up is the fact that this has becoming a really crowded space, so a lot of top competitors coming in. So you got Silca now with their endurance chip and speed chip, so you can tune the wax to your preference. Definitely a worthy competitor. Then of course Molten Speed Wax, although they don't offer variations or performance upgrades for their existing wax, but it's high performance and pretty cheap. That's why you also stock it in the store, to be fair. It's just a good all-round option. Then you got Rex. I haven't tried those products yet, but their reviews are very good, and they also have these high performance and longer distance versions and additives in their wax. And now recently Ceramic Speed have come out with their new wax, which is specifically dubbed as Ultra Endurance or something along those lines. So yep, it's definitely getting the market is getting really a lot more competitive than it was just a few years ago. So even though it's a good product, it's definitely facing some serious competition, but it works, and it's made in the EU. It's easily available in the EU. So if, like me, you're in the European Union, then yeah, you can now have the option of an EU-based product, although this also applies for Ceramic Speed and Rex. So okay, these are my observations about the performance of Optimize. I think I have addressed everything that is possible to address with a product like this, but if you still have some questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.